everybody, this is Jen. Welcome to the homestead and welcome to my channel. So I've been posting a lot over on Instagram about the sourdough focaccia that I've been making. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, you can easily do that at Garden Jen's Journey. Anyways, I've been asked to share how I make that focaccia. So follow me along right here on Garden Jen's Journey. Alright, before I forget, because some people don't know what focaccia is, it's an Italian style bread that's very bubbly in texture. Some people like to top it with Mediterranean or Greek olives, little tiny tomatoes, herbs, but it's usually drenched in lots of olive oil and spices because that's how the Italians love to eat this type of bread. It's a wonderful bread that can go with pastas and things like that, or just eat it as is. So that's basically what a focaccia is. If you want to know more, go ahead and hit the Google on your phone or Siri or Alexa and look up what focaccia is. It's got a rich history. Okay, so this is a sourdough type bread that is made into focaccia. And one of the things about this particular recipe is I do it in a day. Now, some true sourdough enthusiasts will say that you have to let the sourdough ferment at least 8 to 12 hours to give it that true sourdoughness. But, you know, some of us do workarounds where we can actually make a batch of bread in a day's time. So I'm going to show you how you can do that in a day, but you can, if you want to, allow the dough to ferment a little bit longer to give it more of the true authentic sourdough flair. So let's turn around and I will show you how I make this beautiful sourdough bread. Alright, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to make focaccia sourdough. And it's a really great recipe for those who love sourdough. But I want to do something a little different than the typical sourdough bread. So it's really, really nice. I got intrigued by this recipe. I've been watching a lot of Facebook and Instagram reels and stuff. Try to get inspiration on different things to do. And there's a Instagram person, she bakes sourdough, shares a lot of stuff she does with sourdough. And one of the things she likes to do is make focaccia. And so I got hooked just by watching her videos. So this is kind of my own spin on it based on how I personally make sourdough. And so I'm going to share that with you today. So what I have is my sourdough starter. This is a giant batch because I actually make sourdough to sell, so I have a huge batch of starter here. And I use the no discard method, which is a lifesaver when it comes to not throwing things out. I generally use a lot of this sourdough starter. And then I just add to the remains more flour and more water to freshen it up. I don't throw anything out, and it works beautifully. This particular starter is over a year old and is nice and strong and makes beautiful batches of bread. I will try to do a video just on the no discard method of making sourdough starter and how to use it if you're interested. Because for me it's a game changer. Alright, so I have my starter here. I've already got it pre-portioned out. This is 100 grams of starter. And I do use a scale. And I also go by feel as well, because depending on the humidity, sometimes you have to work with a little more flour or a little more water. But I do use a scale that helps quite a bit. So in my bowl, we're going to add the 100 grams of starter. Now I do this right early in the morning, as soon as I get up usually. Okay. That way it has time to wake up, like when I have time to wake up, and you can start working with it pretty quickly. And depending on the ambient temperature of your home, you can have this as fast as lunchtime. But I generally have it ready to go to go with our evening meal. All right, so that's 100 grams of the starter. Now to it, I'm going to add 150 grams of warm water. All right, so again, we want to get this starter woke up and happy. Just like if you're using the instant variety, you use warm water and it helps wake it up a little faster. You don't want it too hot though, because it will kill it. So we're going to do 150 grams, there we go, of warm water. Add that to our bowl. And we're going to mix it in here. We want to try to break up this gelatinous clump here and get it to really disperse into the water. Now we're not going for 100% dissolve. We don't want that. We just want this to break up so it's thoroughly mixed in. All right, that's good. Okay. So it looks something like this. Let me put some more light on the subject. There we go. And to this, we are going to add 375 grams of bread flour. Now, I found that it's very important to use bread flour. If you use an all-purpose flour, it just does not have enough gluten protein to hold together and make a beautiful sourdough. So you have to have the higher gluten content or protein content. All right, so we're just going to mix that in a little bit. Okay. All right. I forgot to add, but it's no big deal because this is the beginning. We need to add 10 grams of sea salt. There we go. 10 grams of sea salt. All right. I'm just gonna mix that in. All right. Okay, I'm gonna add just a little bit more water. Probably gonna do about another 50 grams. Just because the humidity is a little bit off. All right, there we go. So that would put it at 200 grams total of water. There we go. All right. So with focaccia, you want kind of a softer dough than regular bread. Regular bread, I probably could have been fine with the lower amount of water. But with focaccia, you want it a little bit softer. Now I'm just going to mix this by hand. And we're not really kneading it at this point. We're mixing everything together. We want that flour to be incorporated into the dough and no dry flour left. We're almost there. Looking beautiful. All right, so this is nice and mixed in. It's ready to set, and I'm going to show you how we do that. All right, so to get our dough set and ready to go, we're simply going to take it and put it in a fresh bowl. And we're going to cover it with a wet tea towel. All right, so there we go. And we're just going to let this sit for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And then we're going to come back and do what's called a stretch and fold. And that's how I deal with my sourdough. Very easy method. It gives you flexibility on time and things like that with working with your sourdough. And it leaves it kind of more of a hands-off and lets the dough do all the work. So I'll bring you back when it's time to do the stretch and fold and show you how that's done. Okay, I thought I'd show you real quick on how I just refresh my starter after taking the starter out to start the focaccia. And like I said, I use a no discard method, which means I don't throw anything out. So I'm just going to show you real quick on how I freshen this back up. So I took 100 grams of starter out of here, but I actually want to add just a little bit more than that back in because I've got to build my starter back up for next week. So what I'm going to do, and I don't do this by weight, I do it by volume because I've been doing this so long. But I'm basically going to add about a cup of flour to my starter here. And we're going to add a half a cup of water. And again, I'm using warm water because I want to get this starter active. It sits in the fridge most of its life. And that's how it stays fresh so long, is I keep it in the refrigerator because around here the temperature can fluctuate so much. The ambient temperature, especially in the springtime. Sometimes, like today, it'll get up to like 80 degrees outside, but inside we might get up to 70 degrees, if that. In the winter, I'll have the wood stove going, and right here in the kitchen, it can get almost up to 100 degrees, just because the wood stove's right behind me. And so, yeah, we don't keep the sourdough out very long, like for days on end. I'll keep it out for the day and let it get all happy. And then I'll put it back in the refrigerator where it stays most of its life. And it really doesn't mind that at all. All right. So I got this pretty much mixed in. And I'm just mixing it in with the old starter that was originally here. And I got it kind of a wetter hydration than what it was originally. Don't mind the tractors going by. We live in farm country, so it's planting time this time of year. Alright. So let's see. I don't know if the camera will be able to show you here how goopy that is in there. But this is ready to go, and I'm just going to set the lid on it and just give it just a little turn there. But we want the air to be able to come out and things like that. And we'll just leave this sitting on the counter for the rest of the day. And it's about right here right now. By the end of the day, before I put it in the fridge, we should see it come up to about here, which lets me know that the yeast in here is happy, it's getting well fed and hydrated. And then we'll put it back in the fridge for over the weekend before we start making some more dough. So that's how easy it is to refresh the starter. Okay, it's time to do our first stretch and fold on our sourdough dough. We've let it sit for about half an hour, 45 minutes. And like I said, this is a more hands-off way to deal with your sourdough, and it works very well. So it's called stretch and fold, and that's what we're doing. So you're going to look at this as a square, even though it's in a circular bowl here. And you're going to pull each of the 4 sides of the square and fold it over. So it's that simple. So sometimes I take it out of the bowl. It's easier for me to work with. And you just stretch it and fold it. Stretch it and fold it. And you can see how it's tearing apart because the gluten's not quite there yet. And then just like to stretch it into a ball like so. And again, it's going to be very loose gluten still. So, and then we're going to put it back in and cover it up for another half an hour, 45 minutes. Alright, so we're going to do another stretch and fold and see how the gluten structure is coming along. Again, we're just going to take it, stretch it, fold it. Still not quite there yet, but we're getting there. I'm going to stretch it a little bit further. Stretch it and fold it. Okay. So we're getting there. I got it stretched without it falling apart this time. So we're going to let it sit for probably about another 20 to 30 minutes. I'm just pulling it tight. Kind of working it that way. But yeah, we're going to let this sit for another 20 to 30 minutes. Come back and probably do one more stretch and fold. And then we're going to put it in our pan. Alright. So we've let this sit for about another half an hour or so. So we're going to take it out and do one last stretch and fold. And then we're going to put it in our pan. Now, if my room was a little bit warmer, this would go a little bit faster, but we're a little bit cool today, and I am not running the wood stove for just like an hour or so to get it warm in here. So we're just dealing with it. So we're just going to stretch it out one more time. And I'm going to fold it. Just like so. Alright. Take my pan and we're going to spray it with some spray oil. If you want, you could do what a lot of people do, and they actually take olive oil and pour it on in there. I'm not going to do that because I try to keep my personal oil content down, so I save the olive oil for the top. We're going to spray this really good. I'm going to push this down. Alright. I'm going to set that in there. So I'm going to put this in my oven that I had just preheated to 170 degrees and then turned it off and vented it a little bit. That way this can proof in there because again, it's a little bit colder in here today than I usually have it. But we're going to let this sit in there for probably a good hour, 2 hours, and we'll see what it looks like, and then we'll move on to finishing this up and getting it ready to bake. Okay, so we are back to finish our focaccia that we've been working on today. It's quite exciting. So the dough has almost doubled in size. And so what I want to do is it's not quite filling the pan here. So I stretch it out just a little bit. And then I'm going to dimple it. So we're just going to stick our fingers in here and just dimple it. What I like to do also, and you know, it's up to you on how you do it, is drizzle the olive oil over it like that and coat it. And then when you dimple it, your fingers don't stick in it. Okay, there we go. And if this had sat a little bit longer or even overnight, it'd probably be even more puffier. And so when you dimple it, it would be really, really bubbly. And that's one of the classic examples of a focaccia, is it's just bubbles and bubbles and bubbles because of how active the yeast is. It's not quite as bubbly. We do have a few bubbles here, but I'm sure this is going to turn out wonderful anyways. So what we're going to do is kind of a mixture of classic taste and just what I've got on hand. I've got some fresh rosemary here I just took out of the garden. So we're going to just put some rosemary on it for that herby flavor. If you don't have fresh rosemary, you can certainly use dried herbs. I use Italian seasoning a lot on here, and it works pretty good. So we're just going to dot it like that. And then I don't have the Greek or Mediterranean olives, so I'm using Spanish olives. Don't throw your tomatoes at me. So we're just going to take these, and I've already sliced them in half, and we're going to just press them into the dough like this. Just gives it another flavor going on here. You could certainly do without this, and the bread tastes wonderful either way. I've done it plenty of times before, just quite plain actually. It's just really delicious. All right. Okay. And then you can see it, the dough is pushing the ingredients back out, so it's definitely time to get this in the oven. So I'm going to add something new to this today that I haven't done before, but I just got a fresh block of cheese. Well, fresh is relative, I guess, but I got it from our cheese maker at one of our farmers markets, and this is actually feta cheese, which is a goat's milk cheese. So people who are generally lactose intolerant can sometimes handle goat's milk because it has a different property than cow's milk. And if you're vegan, you can definitely leave this out for sure. It's not a deal breaker on this bread at all. But I figured since I got the feta cheese, I would put a little bit in here just to give it another pop of flavor. So I'm just going to take it and we're just going to crumble it a little bit. Just dot it over the bread there. Alright, that looks pretty good. Alright, we're not going crazy here. We just want to add just a couple different layers of flavor in this. Alright, and then last but not least, you want to put a little bit of salt on top. And it helps bring everything together. It's just amazing how just a touch of salt just pulls everything together. Alright, so this is ready to go into the oven. I have the oven set at 400 degrees. We are going to bake this for about 40 minutes, sometimes 50 minutes. You just kind of got to watch it. When the top gets nice and golden brown, it's ready to bring out. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the oven, and I'll bring you back when she's ready to cut. All right, so here is our finished focaccia. Isn't she gorgeous? A little uneven today, but it's perfectly fine. She still tastes perfectly delicious. So focaccia is something that you generally serve warm. So we're going to go ahead and pop this right out like so. Now let me show you what it looks like on the inside. It's kind of interesting. It smells so good already. All right. So there is what it looks like in the middle. It's kind of dense because we didn't allow it to ferment too long. But again, if you want to allow this to ferment overnight or whatever, it could be even more bubbly than it currently is. This is really delicious as is. So we are going to cut this up and have it along with our spaghetti for our lunch today, and really enjoy this. I hope that you enjoyed this video today on how I make my sourdough focaccia bread. And if you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share it with other people who might be interested in another type of sourdough bread. And I thank you for being with me today on this journey. And I hope wherever you are, you're wonderfully blessed. So until next time, everybody, bye-bye.